Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Radhika Satya, Sri Srimad His Divine Grace, Kilabai Danta Swami, Sri Prabhupada, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki, Skandi DP, Founder Sharia Divine Grace, Sri Prabhupada Ki, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki, Harinam Sankirtan Ki, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Type Old Kimanam, or Bloody City Assembly, Bloody City Assembly, Bloody City Assembly, all Bloody, all Bloody, Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, all Bloody, all Bloody. Tirandasya Tasya Smile Vrindavaneshwari Vanshakaladurubhyasya Vipasindhudevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Narayanam Namaskritya Narayanam most of the beings of the substances and others of the names not Bhagavata Seva Bhagavata Shloke I was unto the pure devotees. All unto the Supreme Lord which praise with transcendental is the literary explanation is compiled by the incarnation of God, the reality is meant for the ultimate successful Shri Krishna Chaitanya Hare Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Hare Hare Om Namo Kripa Samaham Bande Yat Kripa Samaham Bande Janataram Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class. We continue from canto number 2, chapter. This morning we're looking at text number 21. Bharaha Param Tatta Kirita
Kirita
Justam
Justam
Api
Api
Utamangam
Tamangam
Na
Na
Namen
Namen
Mukundam
Kundam
Shavao
Savau
Karao
Karau
No
No
Kurute
Gurute
Sapariam
Paryam
Harer
Harer
Dasat
Dasat
Kanchana
Kanchana
Kankanao
Kankanau
Va
Va
Param Bhakta Kirita Justam
Para Parampata Kirita Justam
Apyutamangam Nanamen Mukundam
Apyutamangam Namamen Mukundam
Savao Karao no Kurute Saparyam
Savau Karau no Kurute Saparyam
Hare Nasat Kansana Kankanao
Hare Lasat Kanchana Kankanava
Hara Param Bhakta Kirita Justam
Da Parampata Kirita Justam
Atyuttamangam Nanamen Mukundam
Apyutamangam Namamen Mukundam
Savao Karao no Kurute Saparyam
Savau Karau no Kurute Saparyam
Hare Rasat Kanchana Kankanao
Hare Lasat Kanchana Kankanava
Param Bhakta Kirita Justam
Para Parampata Kirita Justam
Atyuttamangam Nanamen Mukundam
Apyutamangam Nanamen Mukundam
Savao Karao no Kurute Saparyam
Savau Karau no Kurute Saparyam
Hare Rasat Kanchana Kankanao
Hare Lasat Kanchana Kankanova Para Parampata Kirita Justam
Param Bhakta Kirita Justam
Apyutamangam Nanamen Mukundam
Atyuttamangam Nanamen Mukundam
Savau Karau no Kurute
Savao
Saparyam
Karao no Kurute Saparyam
Hare Lasat Kanchana Kankanova
Hare Rasat Kankanao Parampara Pata Kirita Justam
Para Parampata Kirita Justam
Tamangam Namukunde
Apyutamangam Nanamen Mukundam
Karauna Kurute Saparyam
Savau Karau no Kurute Saparyam
Nalasakana Kankanova
Hare Lasat Kanchana Kankanova
Jai Bhakta Saraswati Prabhu ki
Jai.
Jai Guru Maharaj ki Jai Baraha
Bharaha
a great burden
a great bird
Param
Param
heavy
Heavy
Patta
Patta
silk
Silk
Kirita
Kirita
turban
Turban Justam
dress with
Dress with
api
even
uttama
Uttama
upper
Angam
parts of the body
Parts of the body Na
never
Never
namet
Namet
bow down
Bow down
mukundam
Kundam
Lord Krishna
Lord Krishna
the deliverer
He delivered
can open this rope Chabao
Savau
dead body
Dead body
karao
Karau
hands no
No
do
Do not
kurute
Kurute Do
sapariam
Sapariam
worshipping
Arehe
of the personality of Godhead
of the personality of Godhead
Asat
Lasat Glittering Kanchana
made of gold
Made of gold Kankanau
Bengal
Va
even
Even
though
though
translation and purport by divine grace of Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada ki
Jai.
The upper portion of the body, though crowned with a silk turban, is only a heavy burden. If not bowed down before the personality of Godhead, who can award mukti, freedom? And the hands, though decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man if not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead. Hari. And to repeat after me, the upper portion of the body
The upper portion of the body
though crowned with a silk turban,
The crown with a silk turban
is only a heavy burden,
is only a heavy burden,
if not bowed down
if not bowed down
before the personality of Godhead.
before the personality of Godhead.
Who can award mukti,
Who can award mukti,
freedom,
freedom,
and the hands, though decorated with glittering bangles,
though decorated with glittering bangles,
are like those of a dead man,
are like those of a dead man,
if not engaged
if not engaged
in the service
in the service
of the personality of Godhead.
of the personality of Godhead.
Hari,
Hari,
Haribo,
Haribo.
report. As stated herein before, there are three kinds of devotees of the Lord. The first class devotee does not at all see anyone who is not in the service of the Lord. But the second class devotee makes distinctions between devotees and non-devotees. Second class devotees are therefore meant for preaching work, and as referred to in the above verse, they must loudly preach the glories of the Lord. The second class devotee accepts disciples from the section of third class devotees or non-devotees. Sometimes the first class devotee also comes down to the category of the second class devotee for preaching work. But the common man who is expected to become at least a third class devotee is advised herein to visit the temple of the Lord and bow down before the deity, even though he may be a very rich man or even a king with a silk turban or crown. The Lord is the Lord for everyone, including the great kings and emperors, and men who are rich in the estimation of mundane people must therefore make it a point to visit the temple of Lord Sri Krishna and regularly bow down before the deity. Prabhupada tells the story. Story means it used to be the practice, still is, maybe in some places, definitely, not maybe, still is. Those who are from Brahmana background, Kshatriya, and Vaishya background, they generally, traditionally have their own temple in their house. Sometimes in the house, sometimes separate, where they have deities. Very often, deities of Radha and Krishna. And usually in a Vedic village, or Vedic culture, in village, anywhere actually, uh, all the members of the family are meant, as mentioned here, every day to come offer their obeisances before going to work, before starting their activities. The Prabhupada explains how it was the responsibility either of the mother or the grandmother to make sure that everyone would come, and those who did not come, who somehow did not come, would have to pay a fine. Especially if they were like from a Vaishya background, having money. So if you miss a day not coming before going to work to at least offer your obeisances, then so in this way the deities became very rich because often people would not come. This is also mentioned by Narada Muni. There are 5 mandatory activities, especially for householders. The first of which is every day to worship the Lord. Yeah, beginning with Mangalarti uh, and attending Bhagavatam class. So the report continues. The Lord in the temple in the worshipable form is never to be considered to be made of stone or wood. For the Lord, in his Archa incarnation as a deity in the temple, shows immense favor to the fallen souls by his auspicious presence. It is mentioned, enjoined in the Shastra, one should not live in a country where there is no deity, where there is no temple. One should not visit a city or some place where there is no temple. As a matter of fact, in India, people would only travel to holy places. Nowadays, people travel to all kinds of nonsense places. um, but that was a tradition. Everyone likes to travel. It's natural, want to visit some place. And still today, we see devotees become very enthusiastic and make plans for tirtha. But we are being distracted nowadays by all kinds of messages. And these messages often they take us away from the Bhagavatam class. We cannot live without our cell phones. By the hearing process, as mentioned herein before, this realization of the presence of the Lord in the temple is made possible. Because one of the most important activities to do when we go to a temple is to hear Krishna Katha, to come to the Bhagavatam class, to hear from the local sadhus. Actually, when we come to a temple, especially for those who don't come so often to this temple, when we come to the temple, we should switch off our cell phone. Yes. This is the first day I came here. Tomorrow onwards. Yes. Because it's a distraction for you, and also for us, isn't it? So, the material world is already full of so many distractions. During Bhagavatam class, we should try to avoid. Because, as Prabhupada says here, by the hearing process of the Bhagavatam class, by the hearing process, as mentioned here and before, this realization of the presence of the Lord in the temple is made possible. As such, the first process, and we're connecting to your comment yesterday, as mentioned, the first process in the routine work of devotional service, hearing, is the essential point. Very often people who communicate, they don't hear. They're supposed to communicate, but they don't hear each other because everyone is busy trying to put his agenda, his thought, and not hearing the others. And that's especially very critical in householder life, isn't it? If the husband is communicating, wife is not hearing. Wife is communicating, husband is not hearing. Then clash all the time. Yeah. Amongst devotees also same. Hearing is a great art and science. Not not properly hearing, misunderstanding. Not properly hearing, cannot know about Krishna, cannot realize. Yeah. So this is nicely being explained here. The first process in the routine work of devotional service, routine work, basic hearing is the essential point. Hearing by all classes of devotees from the authentic sources like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is essential. The common man who is puffed up with his material position and does not bow down before the deity of the Lord in the temple, or who defies temple worship, without any knowledge of the science, must know that his so-called turban or crown will only succeed in further drowning him in the water of the ocean of material existence. A drowning man with a heavy weight on his head is sure to go down more swiftly than those who have no heavy weights. That's why when you take a flight, they tell you if we have to land on the water, leave all your possessions because if you take them, you will be the first to go down. A foolish, puffed up man defies the science of God and says that God has no meaning for him. But when he is in the grip of God's law and is caught by some disease like cerebral thrombosis, that godless man sinks into the ocean of nescience by the weight of his material acquisition. I think it was NASA some years back were sending, I don't know if it was the first or second man to the moon, whatever. And then some problem developed. And then at some point, they, they started asking people to pray to God. We think about God only when we are in trouble, not realizing and not understanding that we're always in trouble. Material body means trouble. True or not true? True. True. Especially when we get older. Those who are still young here may not realize so much, but some of the older folks here, yes. Even in young age, any time, critical time, especially in the womb, because we don't know if we'll even come out with modern day godless situation. Advancement of material science. Nice point. Advancement of material science without God consciousness is a heavy load on the head of human society. And so one must take heed of this great warning. It's so true. Modern uh, advancement is based on so-called material advancement uh, devoid of God consciousness. And because it is devoid of God consciousness, which is actually the real science, scientists claim to be scientists, but actually so-called modern scientists without God consciousness are not scientists, because the real science is actually spiritual science, which is also reflected in the material world, material sciences. Uh, so when we are neglecting to follow or don't know this science or neglecting to follow it, even though we may know something of it, then uh, it is a formula for destruction. The whole world is on the brinks of destruction, uh, man-made destruction. Man-made destruction. But use very heavy words. Modern civilization is a killing civilization. We're killing animals. We're killing trees. We're killing. There's when I was doing my research, I came across one link, internet link, and it's called the Killing Link. You can go to that link and you can, by the seconds, the numbers are counted, all the different species, how many are being killed every moment. The aquatics are the highest, one of the highest numbers being killed every second. With the horses, chickens, cows, human beings also. modern day civilization devoid of this Vedic knowledge, devoid of God consciousness, is very much a killing civilization. And therefore it's very, uh, yes, very soon you won't have to go there. You'll have to go here. We're bringing Krishna Balaram. Okay, one last section of the purport. I'll just read this last sentence here. Advancement of material science without God consciousness is a heavy load on the head of human society, and so one must take heed of this great warning. The common man, if he has no time to worship the Lord, may at least engage his hands for a few seconds in washing or sweeping the Lord's temple. Yeah, something. Maharaj Prataparudra, the greatly powerful king of Orissa, was also very busy with heavy state responsibilities. Yet, he made it a point to sweep the temple of Lord Jagannath at Puri once a year during the festival of the Lord. And that is what we commemorate whenever we have Rath Yatra. Some personality is chosen. Usually we invite some, maybe a politician. This is tradition, and uh, give them the broom, golden broom, and they sweep the floor. Usually, only for a few minutes. They should sweep more. Actually, the idea is that however important a man one may be, he must accept the supremacy of the Supreme Lord. This God consciousness will help a man even in his material prosperity. Yes, because uh, real prosperity comes when one is actually God conscious. Just like the residents of Vrindavan were actually materially prosperous. They were very, opulence. Uh, People who have land and know how to properly use their land and who have cows, they become very prosperous. Maharaj Prataparudra's subordination before Lord Jagannath made him a powerful king, so much so that even in that so much so that even the great Pathan in his time could not enter into Orissa on account of the powerful Maharaj Prataparudra. And at last, Maharaj Prataparudra was graced by Lord Sri Chaitanya on the very grounds of his acceptance of subordination to the Lord of the universe. So even though a rich man's wife has glittering bangles made of gold on her hands, she must engage herself in rendering service to the Lord. Yes. So Srila Prabhupada is bringing us to Jagannath Puri this morning. That very nice pastime of King Prataparudra, who, uh, although having this great position, of a king, was very uh, devoted, and on the very first time that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, uh, would that be devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Jagannath Puri after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas and his residence in Jagannath Puri. So that very first year is nicely described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that from a distance, when there's like devotees used to travel 300, 400, maybe 500 devotees. It's described would go from Navadvip, Nadia to Jagannath Puri. So after traveling for 1 month, as we get closer, it's like when we go to some special place and we get closer, then the excitement, increases. I can just imagine the kirtan as they were entering Jagannath Puri. The kirtan was tumultuous, it's nicely described. And then from the balcony somewhere, Prataparudra, uh, some of the devotees of Lord Chaitanya who are already in Jagannath Puri we're showing, we're introducing actually from the rooftop to King Prataparudra. These are the devotees, and this Nityananda is there. This is Advaita, like that. And it's described how King Prataparudra was amazed to see, um, never heard such type of kirtan and very wonderful uh, chanting by the devotees. So he naturally developed great attraction, and he conveyed to the devotees, please, you kindly arrange that I meet Lord Chaitanya. So that whole lila developed, of course, and he was very, very sincere, very devoted. I mean, great devotee uh, of Lord Jagannath, naturally. And so he wanted to meet very badly. Actually, wanted to meet Lord Chaitanya. But when that news or that request came to the ears of Lord Chaitanya, he said, "I cannot meet him. I'm a sannyasi. He's the king. Not good." Uh, to show example that saintly person should not mix with a worldly person. Anyways, there's the whole story uh, evolves where uh, at one point, especially, it was due to actually the devotees tried many times. At one point, Lord Chaitanya told them, "Listen, if you bring up this topic again, I'm leaving Puri. I'm going." So the devotees became very afraid. We don't want Lord Chaitanya to leave Jagannath Puri. So they stopped asking him. But then when Ramananda Roy came, Ramananda Roy, Lord Chaitanya had met him in Madras, not in Madras, in what was it? Rajamandri. Yeah, Rajamandri. Ramananda Roy was governor for Madras at that time. Combined. Yeah, Orissa and Bengal were like, yeah, together. So when Lord Chaitanya had met Ramananda Roy, Lord Chaitanya was, really so pleased, to have this kind of exchange because Ramananda Roy was such an exalted personality. So he requested him, "You kindly retire and you join me in Jagannath Puri." So when he arrived in Jagannath Puri, the devotees, they pleaded to him that you're you're very close friend, intimate friend of Lord Chaitanya. You please, on our behalf, request him to meet King Prataparudra. So on his request, actually, Lord Chaitanya did not immediately agree, but he said, "Okay, uh, you." Before that, actually, Nityananda Prabhu had also. So at one point, um, Lord Chaitanya had said, uh, "You bring him some of my cloth." So he gave him some cloth. Then, when Ramananda Roy requested, then he said, "Okay, I won't meet him. I won't meet the king, but you send his son." So King Prataparudra had a young boy, maybe about 14 years of old, 14 years of age. And so it was decided that the son would come. And that's also very vividly described that the young boy, nicely dressed with nice tilak. And so when he was brought to Lord Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya immediately remembered Krishna. The young boy was like, Kishore. Krishna is always youthful, and that young boy, upon seeing Lord Chaitanya, of course, offered his obeisances, and Lord Chaitanya, he immediately embraced him, and upon embracing him, that young boy actually developed all the symptoms of the Mahabhagavata. So, in this way, King Prataparudra was that ideal personality of a king who, although in such a high position, of course, being the king of, uh, being responsible for Jagannath Puri, he was a great devotee of Lord Jagannath. So he's an example of what actually kings should be doing. And if not, as described here, then such persons are, their future is not very 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 good. Yeah. So the hearing process is being emphasized in this verse today, uh, and the importance of visiting the temples, at least for the common man. Prabhupada explains, even if you cannot uh, give time for hearing, you should try to do some kind of menial service. We see actually, at least I've observed, when visiting, when I'm traveling, sometimes visiting some temple, and if I stay a few days, I see some people, they have a regular habit. They'll come and they'll just maybe offer some flower, something. They have this understanding. In India, it's like more easily understood, uh, that I have to make um, some contact, some connection, and uh, the time that nowadays people, because of the lifestyle, modern day way of living, is forcing people, uh, for example, to travel uh, to work, which is Prabhupada is explaining. I was mentioning this yesterday, actually, how in the Vedic culture, uh, localized living saves a lot of time. Nowadays, most people waste so much time traveling to work and traveling back to work. Most people spend minimum half an hour, 1 hour, sometimes 2 hours. There's people every day when I used to go to Calcutta from Mayapur, from Krishnanagar, there's a whole system. The train, people, you might have seen it, they will put papers on the benches to reserve the benches, you know. Uh, and they travel from Krishnanagar to Calcutta. It takes what? 2.5 hours. Okay. 2.5 hours. And they come back every day also, right? That's 5 hours. 5 hours of Gramya Kota, not Krishna Kota. And yeah, you know, uh, it's like it's a whole experience to be in that train and to travel, because it's like crowded, and everyone's smoking. And you've been on the train? Yeah. Smoking is prohibited. Nowadays, smoking is prohibited in the train. Yes, permitted. But still, so many things happen. Family life is really living a good experience. Yeah. I mean, but just imagine some people do this every day for years on end. For years on end.
They're enjoying it.
Huh?
They are very happy.
And they're very happy. Yes. As you mentioned, all kinds of things happen. But you don't have time for work, travel. It's like, after becoming devotees, we forget about some of these things that all of us, in different ways, in different degrees, experience. You know that the so it's not at all ideal and not natural to be. In the West, the situation is I'm sure in Europe. Well, in the West, uh, some people they fly to work every day. They take an airplane to work. I mean, flying is dangerous. Traveling, any kind. Every day, how many people die due to accident? And yeah, Howrah Station and Howrah and the other Shalda. People in the West, unless they come to Howrah Station or Shalda Station, they cannot understand. I guess they have some. Yeah, some of the big cities, it's also very crowded. Tokyo, New York. They have escalators, in the different places, and the escalators in New York, because New York is like a really intense city, and in America, by nature, people do things quickly. The whole modern, and the escalators, they follow the same mood. The escalators, like it was the only place where I experienced that the elevator is so fast, I couldn't, with my crutches, I couldn't get on the elevator. Every other place, I have no problem. But, and especially if somebody doesn't have experience about going on escalator, it can be very dangerous. That is what happens, which is mentioned here in the purport also, when we are neglecting to introduce or to have God in our lives. Modern day society is devoid of basic God consciousness. So therefore, all kinds of we call anomalies, irregular lifestyle, irregularities that have all kinds of negative effects. Okay. Any question or comment? Yes. It's very interesting if you see that in this chapter, the first 12 verses spoken by Shukadev Goswami, and then all the others are spoken, the listeners, like Shaunaka Rishi, who is representing, who is listened to that part before. And it's not common that someone who is listening, speaking so much, but it's have a purpose. So when we are listening properly, then our consciousness change. And that speech proving that we listened properly. So the process is working because we see the word in this way. So we are prepared for listening more because we are really not interested, not just not interested, we see how bad is if someone is not Krishna conscious. And they want to become more and more Krishna conscious. So sometimes we are sitting in a class and we may put questions, but very rare when someone is really opening their mind and saying that, okay, I'm regularly here in these kathas, Krishna katha. That's my changing. That's my experience. That's my understanding. So they share with the speaker and with others. And that the speaker also, if there is, he's a guru generally, you can see, oh, that person is not anymore kanishta. He's seen like a madhyama and can give some other service for them. And devotees, each other can say, oh, that person is so nice, so I want to associate with him also, not just with the guru. So let's build up the Madhyama culture if we share, if we see that a little bit more together, whatever we hear from long. One verse is one verse, right? But when we see the verses for 3 months or something, we have to have some. Yeah, that's a nice point. So that's also very good show what we should follow when we are listeners. Many times we are. Yes, yes. So that's my one observation. You've been listening. Yes, that's a very nice point. Actually, that normally the speaker speaks and the listener listens, but he's pointing out how in this particular chapter, those who are listening, they end up speaking because they've been hearing and have been getting nice realizations, and they're sharing sometimes in question form or just in statement their realizations because of nice hearing. So as we also know that first comes Sravanam, hearing. The Prabhupada actually made this point also. He was telling that one devotee was asking, how is it that you're writing such nice books? How is it your Prabhupada's lectures are amazing actually, and his writing also. How is it, that you have your classes are so wonderful? And Prabhupada said, if there is any credit in my writing or speaking, is because I have heard nicely. I have heard attentively from my Guru Maharaj, and therefore I'm able to speak from. So yeah, that's why uh, Prabhupada reminds us how hearing is the beginning and the most important. And actually, even physically, when we are um, at the end of our life, um, one of our devotees in Montreal, he was not a full-time devotee, but he somehow had this understanding. He would come to the temple. He was caught up with all kinds of intoxication and what, but he would come to the temple do some cleaning. He had that understanding. He never joined. So at one point, because he was heavily drinking and whatnot, taking intoxicants, but somehow he had that. He would come regularly. So one time we got a call from the hospital. He had gone beyond the point, and he was on his deathbed in the hospital. So they knew he was a devotee. They called us, one of your people is here. You should come. So we all went to see him, and he was in a coma. He was in a coma. So then uh, we did a little kirtan, and one of our devotees started to. He was from Christian background, so that devotee started to speak to him about his, you know, uh, about Lord Jesus and whatnot. And at one point, he kind of like he didn't open his eyes, but he had some expression like smile on his face. And so then we were asking the nurse his condition, and she said he can hear everything you're saying, although he's in a coma. So because the hearing is the 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 last sense. We may not be able to move. We may be in a Coma means unconscious. Unconscious means we're not able to relate, but we're able to hear. There's a story. This is a real story, uh, or a fact. One person was in a coma for 30 years. Usually people stay in a coma for maybe a few days or a few weeks. One person was in a coma for 30 years. And finally, some doctor was able to communicate with him. And the guy said, finally, finally somebody is able to, he said, uh, I don't know the details, but somehow he was able to uh, uh, to express or to explain that I've been like this for the last 30 years, and people coming around me talking all kinds of nonsense and whatnot, you know. Uh, and but somehow this one particular doctor somehow uh, was able. So hearing is like the most important faculty, and generally we misuse our hearing, or we don't properly attentively hear, especially in subject matter.
There was an experience of a scientist. He wanted to know how long when someone died still is hearing. So he went to it was at that time when they were the cutting the head of persons who died in England who died.
Oh,
So he went there, and when there was the person head was cutting down, he loudly called the name of the person, and he was watching that the person is reacting or not. And the person was reacting, was opening the eyes. Again he called, opening the eyes. Again he opened eyes, and then fourth time he was not opening the eyes. So he was measuring. After the head is cut, still the hearing is working.
yeah,
Very powerful.
right. Yes. That's why in our tradition also, Vaishnava tradition, when a devotee is about to leave, everyone is surrounding and chanting the holy name. Nice practice. Okay. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Sri Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
All the Pimanam ki. Jai
Bhakti
Parthasaraswati
Ragha
Prabhu
Swami
ki.
Maharaj.
Jai
Jai.
Jai Jai.
For attending Bhagavatam class this morning. Ki Jai.